You've quoted Peter Griffin at the dinner table, and you've watched Stewie plot world domination more times than you can count. But here's what Fox never wanted you to see. Stick around to the end, because the final deleted scene on this list, it's the one the crew themselves called the one that should never have existed. You do not want to miss it. Alright, Quahog awaits. Let's get into it. Before Family Guy became the unstoppable cultural juggernaut it is today, it was nearly canceled. Twice, and in those early, chaotic seasons, Seth MacFarlane and his writers were throwing absolutely everything at the wall. Most of it stuck, some of it did not. Let's start with what insiders have referred to as the pilot Bible cuts. Before the show even aired in 1999, Fox's Standards and Practices team flagged several sequences from the original unaired pilot, which, if you haven't seen it, is genuinely fascinating and completely different in tone from the show we know. The pilot, originally titled Death Has a Shadow, contained an extended cold open segment where Peter Griffin accidentally sells a bag of cocaine at a church bake sale. The gag went on for nearly 3 full minutes. It was cut entirely and replaced with a much shorter, tamer version involving lottery winnings. But that wasn't even the strangest thing they cut from those early days. Coming up in Act 2, we've got the deleted scene from Season 3 that was actually redrawn from scratch and still never aired. The animators who worked on it have never spoken about it publicly until now. Another early cut that's become legendary among the show's writers, a Season 2 cold open featuring Brian Griffin as a full-on nihilist philosopher, delivering a 4-minute monologue on the meaninglessness of suburban American life, directly to camera, breaking the fourth wall completely. The writers loved it. The network hated it. The note from Fox reportedly read, "Brian is a dog. Dogs do not have existential crises. Please remove." What makes this one sting is that elements of that monologue, Brian grappling with his identity, his failed writing career, his place in the Griffin household, became some of the most beloved character work in the show's entire run. The network killed it in Season 2. The writers quietly smuggled pieces of it into the next 4 seasons. And look, we're just warming up, because the deleted scenes from the early years are tame compared to what started happening around Season 5. When the writers apparently decided that literally nothing was off limits. That era produced the single most controversial cut in the show's history, and I'll tell you exactly what it was in just a moment. Here's the thing about Family Guy's mid-run era, Seasons 4 through 7, that people don't fully appreciate. After the show was famously canceled in 2002 and brought back from the dead in 2005 on the strength of DVD sales and Adult Swim ratings, the writers came back with a specific energy. They had nothing to lose. They had proven the network wrong, and they were going to make it count. Which is how we ended up with what the writers' room has internally called the Lois episode. There was a Season 5 story draft, fully written, partially boarded, in which Lois Griffin discovers she has been living a double life as a sleeper agent. Not a parody. Not played for laughs. A genuine, dramatic spy thriller structure, lasting about 6 minutes of screen time, in which Lois shoots 2 government officials, burns a safe house, and delivers a monologue about maternal identity that one writer later described as, quote, like Homeland, but somehow more depressing. It was killed because, in the words of Seth MacFarlane's team, it simply wasn't a Family Guy story. The writers disagreed. The draft still exists. Now, you might be wondering, okay, that's weird, but where's the truly scandalous stuff? Fair. Because what's coming next is the deleted material that actually caused a real argument between Seth MacFarlane and Fox executives. Not over content, but over something much more specific. I'll explain exactly what happened right after this. The most documented creative conflict in Family Guy's deleted scenes history involves a Season 6 episode originally titled, we're calling it by its internal name here, Quahog After Dark. The episode was designed as a full parody of prestige HBO crime dramas, specifically The Wire and The Sopranos. Peter runs a criminal empire out of the Drunken Clam. Quagmire becomes a government informant. Cleveland runs a numbers game from his bathtub. Seth MacFarlane reportedly loved it. Fox did not. Their objection was not the content, it was the runtime. At 32 minutes, it was nearly double a standard episode. Fox refused to air it as a two-parter. MacFarlane refused to cut it down. The episode was shelved. Several elements were later recycled across different episodes, but the full cut has never aired. And here's where it gets genuinely interesting, because Quahog After Dark isn't even the most structurally unusual thing in the deleted archives. There are at least 2 episodes that were completed, fully animated, scored, mixed, and then pulled within 48 hours of their scheduled broadcast date. We're getting into those after Act 3, but before we get there, let's talk about the cutaway gags, because Family Guy's deleted cutaways are their own entire universe. If you want to understand how Family Guy is made, you have to understand the cutaway. It is the show's signature weapon. The hard left turn, the non sequitur, the "this reminds me of the time" gag that can last anywhere from 3 seconds to 2 minutes. The writers generate hundreds of these per season. Most don't make it. Here are some of the most notable deleted cutaways from across the show's run. First, and this one is genuinely beloved by the writers, a cutaway in which Peter claims that the best car trip he ever took was with Abraham Lincoln. The gag that follows was apparently a full, historically detailed bit in which Lincoln critiques the I-95 highway system, complains about the price of rest stop food, and gets pulled over for speeding. The cop recognizes him. Lincoln bribes the cop with the Gettysburg address. The whole thing was 90 seconds. It was cut for pacing. There's also a deleted cutaway so bizarre that it became an inside joke among the crew for years. It involves Stewie, a time machine, and a game of Scrabble, and the punchline reportedly made 2 writers quit the room laughing. I will tell you exactly what it was in just a moment, because you are going to want to hear this one. A Season 9 deleted cutaway featured Meg Griffin as the protagonist of a full horror movie parody. In the joke, Peter says, "This is just like that horror movie where the killer only targets middle children." And then we cut to a slasher film in which Meg is being stalked. But every time the killer gets close, he stops, looks at her, and just quietly walks away. The joke ends with Meg chasing the killer, begging him to attack her just so someone will pay attention to her. It was cut. Officially, because it ran too long. Unofficially, according to one writer, because it was too real and too sad, and we all felt bad. And the Stewie Scrabble cutaway? In it, Stewie travels back in time specifically to play Scrabble with Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock plays the word murder on a triple word score. Stewie objects, claiming it violates house rules. Hitchcock stands up. They stare at each other. Cut to black. No punchline, just the stare. The writers kept it in the draft for 3 weeks because no one wanted to be the one to cut it. Okay, we've covered the early years, the mid-run mayhem, and the cutaway graveyard. Now we get to the stuff that was actually pulled from broadcast. Episodes that were done, finished, scheduled, and then yanked. 2 of them never aired anywhere in the world. Here's why. Across television history, there is a very short list of animated episodes that were completed, scheduled for broadcast, and then pulled before airing. Family Guy has contributed at least 2 confirmed entries to that list, and the circumstances around both are fascinating. The first is Partial Terms of Endearment, and this one you may actually know because it eventually did see the light of day, just not on American television. The episode, in which Lois acts as a surrogate mother, was completed in 2010 and scheduled to air in the 8th season. Fox pulled it before broadcast, citing the sensitive nature of its subject matter, reproductive rights, surrogacy, and the ethical debates surrounding them. It aired in the UK. It eventually made it to DVD in the US, but it never aired on American network television. When Seth MacFarlane was asked about it, he said it was one of the episodes he was most proud of, precisely because it handled a real issue with more care than people expected from the show. But that one at least got out eventually. The second pulled episode is a different story entirely, because to this day, there is almost no official information about it. What we know comes from the crew, and what the crew says about it is unusual. That story is up next. The second pulled episode is sometimes referred to among fans as the Connecticut episode, though that is not its real title, and the real title has never been officially confirmed. What is known is this: Sometime during the production of seasons 10 through 12, a full episode was completed and then removed from the broadcast schedule without public explanation. The episode apparently centered on the Griffin family temporarily relocating to Connecticut following a disaster in Quahog, and the storyline involved a subplot about a community in crisis that, in the wake of real-world events occurring close to the episode's scheduled air date, Fox determined was no longer appropriate to broadcast. No writer has officially spoken about it on record. It has not appeared on any DVD release. It does not appear in any official episode listing. Its existence is documented primarily through crew references, a handful of production documents that have surfaced online, and one interview in which a writer, when asked about it directly, paused for a very long time and then said simply, "We made the right call." 2 pulled episodes, both for completely different reasons. One for content, one for context, and yet neither of those is the deleted material that has generated the most discussion among the most dedicated Family Guy fans. For that, we need to talk about the finale and the scene that the crew themselves said should never have been written. That is literally the next thing I'm going to tell you. Okay, we're here. The scene I promised you at the top. Late in Family Guy's run, we're not going to pin an exact season for reasons that will become clear. The writer's room generated a cold open concept that everyone in the room apparently agreed was hilarious, then immediately agreed was impossible to air, and then spent approximately 2 weeks arguing about anyway. The scene was a direct parody of a famous real-world television moment. The kind of live, unscripted incident that gets replayed and analyzed endlessly. The Family Guy version placed Peter Griffin in the role of the central figure in that moment. Verbatim dialogue, exact blocking, complete recreation, except with Peter's particular brand of total obliviousness layered over every beat. The writers described it as possibly the funniest thing they had written all season. 2 animators reportedly stayed late to board it on their own time because they wanted to see how it would look. Seth MacFarlane's reaction, according to the room, was to laugh for a full minute and then say, "We absolutely cannot do this. Delete the document." The document was deleted. The boards were not submitted. The scene exists now only in the memory of the people who were in that room. And every single one of them, when asked about it years later, has given the same answer. "It was the funniest thing we ever wrote, and we were completely right to kill it." That is, in some ways, the perfect Family Guy story, because the show has always lived right on that line, between what you can say and what you absolutely cannot, between the joke that lands and the one that goes too far. The deleted scenes, the pulled episodes, the cutaways in the graveyard, they are the shadow version of the show, the Family Guy that almost was. And honestly, knowing it exists makes the show we do have feel a little more alive. Every show has a deleted scenes archive. Most of them are forgettable. Family Guy's is a parallel universe, and the deeper you go into it, the more you realize that the show's greatest trick isn't the jokes that made it to air. It's the discipline of knowing which ones to bury. If this video sent you down a Family Guy rabbit hole, and let's be honest, it probably did, then the next video you want is right here. We go deep on the episodes that actually did air but probably shouldn't have, the ones that caused real controversies, real apologies, and in one case, a direct call from a US Senator's office to the Fox switchboard. It is a wilder story than anything we covered today. Click it. You'll thank me. I'll see you over there.